A woman named Ingrid Novak left a comment on this channel 3 months ago that I have not stopped thinking about since. She is 57. She lives in Vienna. For 30 years, she has run a small rare bookshop 2 streets from the Musikverein, the kind of shop with a bell on the door and first editions kept behind glass that most customers only ever look at, never buy. Ingrid did not come to me in crisis. She came to me the way most of the women in this community do, quietly, midlife, sensing a gap between the woman she had built herself into and the woman she suspected she was capable of being. Here is what she told me, in her own words, paraphrased. For years, she had noticed something she could not name. Waiters in her own neighborhood had started rushing her table. A younger colleague at a nearby auction house had begun finishing her sentences when they discussed a client together. Nothing dramatic, nothing she could point to and call disrespect, just a slow erosion of the deference she used to receive without asking for it. She said it felt like becoming furniture in her own life. She found this channel the way most of you did, a video sent by a friend at 2 in the morning with the message, "Watch this." She downloaded the free Elegant Morning Routine checklist that same night. Within 2 weeks, she had rebuilt her mornings around it. 20 minutes of silence before she touched her phone, a breakfast eaten at her own table instead of standing at the counter. She told me the shift was so immediate that her son asked if she'd started seeing someone. Then she went further. She purchased the Undeniables complete system and worked through the first 90 seconds code and the social architecture files specifically. She practiced the pause before speaking. She practiced walking into a room without announcing herself. She stopped touching her hair, her face, her collar in conversation, a habit she said she hadn't even known she had until she watched herself do it on a video call. Within a month, she said, the waiters stopped rushing her. The younger colleague stopped finishing her sentences. But here's the real consequence. The part of her comment that mattered more than any of it. She also told me, gently but firmly, that one thing in this world doesn't travel. She'd watched women import an entire vocabulary of confidence, including tipping customs, from one country into another without asking whether it belonged there. In Vienna, she said, service is not purchased with a gesture imported from somewhere else. It's paid properly, structurally, by the people who employ the person serving you. Generosity there means something different than it does in Manhattan. That is the insight a wealthy Austrian hotelier once gave her, decades ago, over coffee. Sophistication is never a costume you put on. It's a fluency you earn in the room you are actually standing in. Ingrid's reflection stayed with me for weeks because it captures something I have watched for 15 years and have never said plainly enough. Old money is not a set of imported gestures performed identically in every room. It is a set of internalized instincts that adjust, without effort, to wherever you actually are. My name is 𝐈𝐬𝐷𝐿. Every week, I bring this community the information that nobody else is willing to say plainly. That community is called the Undeniables. If you are new here, subscribe right now. You belong here. And drop the city you are watching from in the comments below. I am always down there reading. I want to know where my fellow Undeniables are. Now, let's get into it. Before we go further, I have to tell you something. The habit that changed everything for Ingrid, the 20 minutes of silence, the table breakfast, it's not something I'm going to describe and leave you to guess at. I'm giving it to you. It's called the Elegant Morning Routine Checklist, and it's completely free. 12 rituals, the exact ones sophisticated women use after 40 to protect their hormones, their skin, their energy, and their presence before the world ever sees them. It's the same document Ingrid opened at 2 in the morning. It's linked below this video. Go get it before you finish watching. Habit number 1 is the half-second pause. I have watched this in boardrooms in Manhattan and in dining rooms in Paris, and it is always the same. Before answering a question, any question, even an easy one, a woman with real presence pauses. Half a second. Sometimes a full one. It signals that she is considering her answer rather than reaching for the first thing available. Researchers at Yale have studied this exact behavior in negotiation settings and found that a brief, deliberate pause before speaking increases how competent and trustworthy a listener perceives someone to be, even when the content of the answer doesn't change at all. A corporate attorney I know, someone who made partner at 38, told me she trained this pause into herself deliberately after watching a senior partner do it in her first year. She said it was the single habit that changed how opposing counsel spoke to her. This is also where I have to mention something, briefly, because it's relevant to exactly this kind of internal work. The Undeniables Complete System, the program Ingrid used to build her 90 seconds code, exists because habits like the pause are not things you can absorb by watching a video once. It's a sequenced, 30-day curriculum built around identity first, expression second. I'll come back to it. Let's keep going. Habit number 2 is refusing to replace an object that still works. Wealthy women are not the ones constantly upgrading. They are the ones who repair. A cracked watch face gets fixed by a watchmaker, not replaced by a newer model. Researchers at Cornell have found that people whose relationship to their possessions is rooted in security, rather than scarcity, are measurably less likely to treat objects as disposable, and are perceived by others as calmer and more established. An antiques restorer I've worked with told me her wealthiest clients bring her the same handbag for 20 years running. Her middle-class clients, she said, almost never come back twice. Habit number 3 is keeping her hands away from her hair, her face, and her clothing while she speaks. This is the one Ingrid mentioned specifically, and it's one of the most reliable signals I know. Touching your hair or adjusting your collar mid-sentence reads unconsciously as self-soothing under pressure. Researchers at Princeton studying nonverbal behavior in high-stakes settings found that self-touch gestures correlate directly with how anxious and less authoritative a speaker is perceived to be, regardless of what they're actually saying. A diplomat I know trains new staff by filming their first briefings and making them watch their own hands. She says most people don't believe how often they do it until they see the tape. Habit number 4 is the handwritten note. Not an email, not a text, an actual note in her own hand sent after a dinner, a favor, or an introduction. The Harvard Business Review has written about the disproportionate goodwill generated by handwritten correspondence in professional settings. It reads as effort in a world that has stopped requiring any. A hotel general manager I know keeps every handwritten note she's ever received from a guest in a drawer in her office. She told me she can recall the name of every person who sent one. She cannot recall a single guest who only emailed. Habit number 5 is entering a room without announcing it. No throat clear, no sorry I'm late, no scanning for who's watching. She simply enters and finds her seat. Researchers at the University of Chicago, studying status perception in group settings, found that unnecessary self-narration upon entry, explaining your arrival, apologizing for it, reliably lowers how much authority a person is assigned by the group, even before they've spoken a word. A venture capitalist I know walks into pitch meetings 20 seconds after everyone else on purpose. She told me it isn't rudeness. It's that she refuses to perform an apology for taking up space. Habit number 6 is sitting inside silence instead of filling it. When a conversation goes quiet, most people rush to fix it. A woman with old money composure lets it sit. Oxford researchers studying conversational dynamics have found that tolerance for silence correlates strongly with perceived confidence and social rank. The more secure someone feels, the less urgency they feel to narrate every pause. A psychotherapist I know, someone who has sat across from some of the most anxious executives in New York, told me the wealthiest of her clients are, without exception, the most comfortable saying nothing at all. Habit number 7 is fluency, not performance, in the customs of wherever she actually is. This is Ingrid's insight, and it deserves its own place on this list because I have never heard it said as clearly as she said it. The habit is not tipping 30%. The habit is not a gesture memorized and exported wholesale into a country where it means something entirely different. Researchers at the Cornell School of Hotel Administration have documented how service norms, tipping among them, are structurally different across cultures, tied to how wages are actually built, not to how generous a customer feels. A maitre d' I know at a property in the French countryside told me the guests he respects most are not the ones who tip the most. They are the ones who ask quietly, "What is customary here?" before assuming they already know. Habit number 8 is the wardrobe that repeats itself. 10 pieces worn constantly, not 100 worn once. Researchers at Stanford studying decision fatigue have found that reducing daily choices, including wardrobe choices, preserves cognitive bandwidth for decisions that actually matter, and that people who dress with a defined repeating palette are perceived as more decisive and put together than those who visibly vary. A creative director at a boutique fashion house told me her personal wardrobe hasn't meaningfully changed in 11 years. She said the compliment she receives most is that she always looks like herself. And before we close this out, I want to mention once more where habits like these actually get built permanently, not temporarily. The Undeniables Complete System is the 30-day framework behind everything Ingrid described to me. The identity work, the signal mastery, the social architecture, the wellness science underneath all of it. 7 files, over $500 of documented value, available today for $69. Because the point was never exclusivity, it was access. It's linked below or scan the QR code on your screen. Habit number 9 is the question she asks before she buys anything at all. Will I still want this in 10 years? Not will it impress someone this weekend. Will it still earn its place in her life a decade from now? The Harvard Business Review has written about long-term oriented consumption as a marker of what researchers call psychological wealth, a security that doesn't need validating by the next purchase. An art collector I know, a woman who has bought and sold work for 3 decades, told me she has never regretted a piece she asked that question about first. She has regretted almost everything she didn't. So here is what all 9 of these have in common, Ingrid. And every woman watching who has felt herself becoming furniture in her own life the way she once did. None of these habits are about performing wealth. Every one of them is about refusing to borrow a gesture you haven't earned the meaning of. The pause, the silence, the custom of the room you're actually standing in. Old money was never the tipping percentage or the label on the bag. It was always the fluency underneath, built slowly, privately, until it stopped requiring thought at all. Write that down if you need to. Elegance is not a costume, it's fluency. And fluency cannot be rented, only built. Here is your assignment. Pick 3 habits from this list, not 9. Practice them for the next 7 days. The pause before you answer, the hands away from your hair and face, and 1 more of your choosing. Then come back and comment. I practiced the pause, the stillness, and your 3rd habit. Tell me what shifted. You can comment below, or you can send me an email. I read every one. 3. Before you go, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. There's a video on your screen right now that I'd recommend you watch immediately after this one. It picks up exactly where this conversation leaves off. Until next time, to every woman watching, you are not here by accident. You are an undeniable. Act like it. Isabel.